Hi, this is my technical video for Unity, for indie game dev. In this video, I'll go over all the assets I've done, all the songs I've done, and how I did such things. So let's go over each scene first, shall we? So main menu. For the main menu, I was going for a simple aesthetic. So what I've done is I got a background from a royalty-free wallpaper site, and essentially I wanted to get like a sort of like a vibe sort of background, like background you'll hear in like beat music. So I got like a vaporwave sort of like mounted background to like give the impression that this is what the game's gonna look like. What I then did is I then added a post processing volume. Originally it was an empty project, but added like a post processing volumes to it. So obviously without this, it just looks like a plain 2D flat background. It still looks good, uh, don't get me wrong, but by adding a simple effect like through post processing and giving the intensity up a bit, you can bring out the brightness and like the brightness, the bloom, and etc. from the background. Just give it a bit more of that pop. Over here we go to canvas. You can see the image is attached to the canvas, and also you see each button that's attached to it. Each of these buttons, obviously, play button will take you to the song select menu, and this will obviously allow you to select what song you want to play in a song, select what song to play. Settings will take settings, and exit will take the exit, or just quit the game. Obviously, play button. I've got an on play event where I've got a main menu script, so I just open this script right now, and I'll just drag this onto the screen from my second monitor. As you can see, the script basically says that using Unity's engine scene management system, I can call the scene from like where it's built on a project. So basically, the scenes are normally called from 0 to 3. If I have like more basically 4 scenes, for example, as it always starts from 0. However, since I'm only calling a specific scene, what I can do is I can just literally type in public void play game, open the brackets, see basically using the scene manager, I can load a specific scene by typing in the text of that specific scene. So for example, if I want to load in someone, I'll just do load scene manager dot load scene, open brackets, uh, text low son 1. But in this case, since I'm loading in the son select, I just want to just do son select. I then basically done a public void quick game, which allows me to obviously quit the application when the game is built. I then attach this to like the canvas, which then basically just allowed me to obviously add functions to these buttons. So let's go to the son select scene, shall we? Just save this. Son select scene. This is somewhat the same style as the main menu. However, this doesn't have a bloom effect only because I didn't like the post-processing effect on. I did like the post-processing effect for this sort of wallpaper that I picked for this select menu. Uh, it made the colors didn't really popped out, but it popped out too much, like to the point where it's almost blinding. And if you turn down the bloom effect too low, it just wasn't good for the eyes, and it didn't really make much of a difference. So I decided to cut the post-processing effect for this scene. However, what I did add was a scrollable object to the canvas, or scrollable area in this case. I basically then added obviously the content, which is the song names for each of the buttons, which basically added a same as the main menu scene, added it on clickable event, which will be via the song script. If I just load in that right now, that's script for later. Some menu, yep, some menu script. So I just load this script real quick. Um, Obviously, song one's called start, so we'll load start. Song 2 is obviously called Song 2, and Song 3 is work in progress. But as you can see, this is not here anymore. This is because this is the final build of this game, and originally Song 3 is mainly for me to like test out certain things I wanted to add to my game, such as like long presses, different effects, and all sorts of them good stuff. Using the same thing as before, just calling certain songs. Now let's go to the real meat and potatoes, which is the song itself. So let's cover song one first. So as you can see, there's no background. Well, this is because the background is all the way down here. Because obviously this is like its own thing. So obviously I'm not gonna scroll all the way out. Just go to the game. As you can see, the background is related to the Son theme, which is the Son is from Fate Grand Order, another game itself. This is an OST from its track. Uh, Now the reason I picked this Son instead of like a royalty-free Son is because I'm planning to make this a open source sort of game where anyone can like add them. Anyone can just download this project and add their own sons and like and map it and basically code it for themselves. I went this approach for like multiple reasons, as uh, I feel like having like a modding scene for like a game is like more important than adding adding like own content and have like a lack of content on launch. So let's go over the details, shall we? So first off, post processing effect. If I were to turn on post processing effect now, it would just be a nice visual wallpaper, but it still looks flat. So if I add uh, an effect basically adds so much detail to the scene. It adds, basically makes the gateway of the stars open up and show visuals on the characters' faces. So basically, it just makes it more bright and effective. And obviously, when arrows are coming down, you just basically hit the arrows, and the arrows like have like this unique bloom effect as well. Obviously, the pause menu canvas. It's not shown currently, but if you press escape, it will just bring up a simple pause menu that allows you to go back to the sun, etc. Back to certain areas of the game itself. Note holder. So this is where the notes is all hold via the Sun Scroller script. Let's just open up the Sun Scroller script real quick. So within this script, obviously the song beat is 80 for this specific song. Within the song script, it basically says it has like a public float, which is beat tempo, and a public boom, which is a public bow, which has started. This basically lets know. This basically calls the script and calls the arrows. Like, has the song started, and what is like the beat tempo that you're to set for each song. Obviously, then set the speed of the song, which will then update via. Obviously, the beat tempo will update via the voice start method. So obviously, these are obviously all commented out because these are all old versions that are used for like, the song. So basically, like the original version that I commented out and basically figured that it was not needed anymore, but it's good to have as it showed progression within the game. So the only thing that's in there now is basically like, has the song started? If it has started, transform to the new position via time delta time. We then go to like the game manager. This is where everything is managed. So obviously, uh, all the button controllers are in here. So obviously the buttons are right here. They're all like at the bottom as seen here, like red, blue, green, yellow. Originally the arrows was gonna have color to indicate what is being pressed and what box is gonna go to, but I kind of feel this kind of like invalid considering that the the arrows is only in one specific lane and they're going to hit that box anyway. Would add more style to the game, but I figured it had to be a kind of null. Obviously, lane offset 1.1. This basically tells us what lane it's going to go in and what's the offset for each lane. This basically the BS is basically like what is basically like the note holder. So what we're calling like what is holding the notes. Um, Basically the BS, but originally it's called the beat son or the beats of the son. That's what BS is short for. But I should have realistically called it beat map, so BM. Scroll speed is 8. I feel 8 is a good in between. It was originally 10, but I felt 8 was a good um a good speed pretty much. Latency is minus 0.1. Any higher it feels a bit off. Um, Obviously these are like the scores you get per note, so current score is always set to 0 because you're not going to start with 100 points right off the bat. This basically just creates itself when the game starts. Obviously these are the scores you get per note, so 100 being like for a normal score, 125 for good score. To basically how this would basically recognise 100 would be basically around here, 125 be around here, then dead centers, which it'll be 150, which would be a perfect, and the multiplayer will just go up by 1 each time. So it's just starts at 1, but then the multiplayer threshold will be like 0, 2, 4, 8. And then over here is where the result screen is managed. So obviously there's 358 notes in total. All these are at 0 by default, and then basically the results basically calculate via like the text, like what is like basically the gonna be the score and all that. I'll cover scripts real quick. Back button. This is like the back button script. Um, Basically, this just basically means that this is using like the more a traditional way of basically playing a game and returning the game. So obviously, scene manager dot load scene, get active scene dot build index +1, and then obviously return will be -1. So basically, you just add in 1 to the scene, it'll call the next scene, and you just -1 because call goes back to the next scene, or sorry, the last scene. Effect code. This basically goes over the effects of the game. Uh, Obviously, this is not being used anymore. This is just left over from the original effects from the original version of the game. But basically, just originally just basically used like how long would the effect last, and obviously destroys the effect. Game objects, obviously the game manager, note object, and button controller. We're just gonna cover these real quick. Uh, so this is a lot. It's a lot to take in, but I'll cover it as quick as I can. So we got all the public floats, or public floats, and also the son tracking. Son tracking, this basically tracks the son. This line of code just basically gives all the public information that it needs for me to actually code the code. So obviously, uh, using Unity's engine audio, using engine UI. Then obviously, here's basically son tracker episodes like so, public son info ems underscore son. That's the public of it. That's the public void. Also the public variable that I called for the son. Then obviously transform. Then arrows variable prefab is just public transform. Then serialized field is basically it's basically like a private, like an even more private variable. It's basically it makes the button control only private, only be edited in the code and not basically via the public event or public variable. So obviously public float, time last beat, public second per beat. This basically this point of code here just basically covers or basically adds the variables that will obviously allow me to edit the beats of the song. Obviously it's like the lane offset as I covered earlier. This is a public boolean that lets you know if this lets me code if the song has started playing or not. These obviously serialized field again and so scroll latency. So scroll latency, scroll speed. Then they're making a public static game manager an instance. Me set up like integers for each of like the current scores and like multiplayers and trackers. It's basically all the stuff that basically keeps track of the scores and how the scores are like managed. But obviously, this basically let me know. This basically was letting me know like if I have to do some research on these float timers. Obviously, this kind of doesn't matter anymore because I'm not adding. There's no long presses in the game, so obviously I was doing research. I was going to plan on doing research originally to basically let me know if I want to like actually add long presses to the game, and this was like, the best method to do it. Obviously, private void and awake. This basically calls like the song beats per second of the BPM of the song. what is the current beat, where the beat map pointer is, how long since the last beat, and basically getting like the chart, getting the children of the audio source, and the position of the audio source and the latency. This basically starts a core event that just tell me how long since the last one's played. Um, Obviously I'm summarizing this for the very best because obviously this is a lot to cover, but essentially this updates the son. So basically every time the son start playing and every time I input a key, like any key on the keyboards, like so the arrow key is up or left, right, up, down, and obviously escape. Uh, so obviously you just let me know the son and start playing and the BS has started. Okay, the beat map or the beat son in this case. Just let me know the results screen is set to false or by default. Cause don't want the results screen to be active throughout the whole song. Um, but yeah, I'm just gonna scroll through this. It's actually a very complex sort of code. Basically, me calling that how long the time it to the timer. Basically, it's basically set a timer for when the hits should be called and how and what the score is gonna be like. These are basically the rank values for the results screen. So obviously, if you're below a 55%, you get a D. If you're below 70%, get a C. 80, anything below 85% is a B. 95% is an A. Then obviously S is just like you basically hit every note in the scene. And obviously this basically the note variables like what is the multiplier for each note. So miss will take you back to 1. And obviously these are all the same. So basically current score plus equal score per note, and then multiply it, and then obviously this is like tracking the song and emulator the song, the later start and all that. That was a lot to cover within the obviously within the game manager itself. Button controller, yeah, again this is somewhat big, but obviously this is what you're hitting the button with. Just basically me setting up like a collision event, so obviously the buttons can be hit and destroyed. Me setting up like a certain timer, like a hit length, and obviously is the button pressed. Um, where's the location for each of the arrows when above the arrow, or when above the button. So obviously, if it's 0.25, like use the math to calculate if it's like a normal, perfect, good, or miss. And obviously a trigger event basically triggered a collision event, so obviously destroy the arrow. Then on trigger exit, basically just exit collision, exit the box, and obviously allows you to press. You get more commented out sections of the old code which weren't really doing anything anymore with the latest version of the game. This is the note objects basically allow basically this point code just allows me to press basically if the arrow has been pressed and if the keys are like obviously being pressed in. Originally this held in all the scoring system. I thought I transferred it also even I've transferred it all over like the main game manager and button system. Uh, because it was kind of like a messy way I'd done things. So I basically just commented it all out. I didn't delete it. I left it here as a reminder that this is just like incorrect. Like just don't do it this way again. So it's basically a way to remind myself that this is like a bad way of doing things. And obviously a collider 2D event, etc. So that's all the big stuff out of the way. Let's go to the main menu code. Oh no, I talked about it already. That's my bad. So we're talking about backbone, we're talking about effects, talking about game objects, we're talking about main menu, music codes. So this here, this here are objects, like scriptable objects are created. This basically allows if I actually go to one of them and edit the script, which allows me to see the script itself. It allows us to see what is in the scene. So obviously you've got public audio clip, public int BPM, and public list of beats per map, and obviously public int location and public lane. So what does this do? Well, instead of me just adding the music to a game object and then adding notes, by adding the prefab notes just to the scene and doing it manually, this creates notes to the scene. So obviously so test was the original name for this song here. It has a BPM of 80 and essentially has 358 notes. Each one of these elements calls a prefab from the top of the screen into the scene itself, and basically allows it to be pressed and clickable. It's not auto generated, as you still need to actually listen to the beat of the song and add the notes to your no, add the notes like that way. But it's more better than just dragging in the notes manually. If I had more time and research, I could have researched a charting system and automatically charted the songs. But this was the best compromise that I could make. Song code. I think I covered song scroller. Yeah, I covered song scroller. Song info. The covered the info of the song. Yep, I covered song info. And song menu. This is basically the code for the song select menu. Obviously, calls each scene. So scene level 1 is called start, level 2 is called songs 2, and then the work in progress level is basically a testing ground level, which is called WIP, work in progress. So I guess I should cover everything else. Prefabs. These are original effects that got cut from the game. These are still going to be in the game just in case when it goes open source anyone wants to use it. Left arrow, right arrow, up arrow, and down arrow. These are all the prefabs used. Basically, these get called. These arrows get called and basically play on the scene. And obviously these got the effects attached to it. Music. This is where all the music is held. So obviously, there's two variants of the second song. The reason because of this is because one of them is a bit more crunchy audio, which I didn't really like, and the second one is more clearer. It's more clear audio. Menus. This is basically where the post-processor effects are held, and each menu wallpaper is held. Graphics. These are the graphics for the buttons. These are the effects for this is the post-processor effects I use for each of the songs used. I basically just like drag these into the scene and edit them how I feel that is fit for each song and each song I use. Um, Obviously the second song has a much more it's like a much more advanced post-processor effects, which I'll show you in a bit. Um, but yeah, I think that covers everything. TextMesh Pro, this is a good. It's much better than the Unity base text. So TextMesh Pro is like my go-to. So let's just go to like the second song. So I can show you what that looks like. So second song, immediately. Post-processing effects is much better than the first song in my opinion. It's got much more clearer visuals. I will show you a comparison. So the original that's the wallpaper, my bad. So the original wallpaper was much more smoky, much more like nighttime theme. But I wanted to bring out the purples and the whites a lot more. So I added a post-processing effect. I added like a purple layer and added like more whites and more effects to the scene. But basically, this just it's same code as the first song. Everything's the same except obviously different song, different background, and different post-processing effects. I'll go over the post-processing effects real quick. I add intensity to 4. Diffusion. This basically shows the intensity of the effects on the scene. Diffusion. I added to 8. This basically. I like it 8. I don't. Basically changes like the feeling effects, etc. As explained here. I made the color purple. I just used the eyedropper tool and just pressed the purple in the background to make it as close as possible. Now obviously these are left the same other than the temperature. I made a temperature of -25. But yeah, this is everything done for my. This is a technical video done for my Unity project. Uh, and this basically covers everything that I've done so far. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.